Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball Podcast, episode 50. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Wilt each and every week. We're getting up there in numbers, Jaren. We're going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball. I was thinking earlier when we were prepping the show notes.
Yeah.
And I realized this was our 50th episode.
You mean when our interns were prepping the show notes?
Yeah. The unpaid ones.
Yeah, we're like Ron Burgundy. We just read what's on the prompter.
Yep. That gets put together for us by some mysterious intern that we don't know about.
I mean, no one pays me, so I'm kind of an unpaid intern myself.
That's why I emphasized unpaid. But I was thinking, we are halfway to 100. What are we going to do for our 100th episode? It'll probably be almost a year from now. But
yeah,
something to think about.
Yeah, if we do full,
well, we do an episode a week, and there's 52 weeks,
right? But then we'll do some, we'll take some weeks off in the off season. This is such great talk about the school we're talking about this week. I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll do a giveaway. You know what? I'm optimistic. Maybe we'll have something to give away at episode 100. That would be nice. That would be nice to have.
We're talking about Indiana State this week.
Audio listeners, you couldn't tell, but the people who are watching on YouTube, a lot of blue. A lot of blue.
Our chairs are blue. Our shirts are blue. The wall is very blue.
This is just powder blue over here. just powder blue shirt, powder blue hat, powder blue jersey.
But yes, we are wearing Indiana State apparel, and our podcast color primarily is blue. So we're fans of blue, even though over half of our schools that we talk about wear red.
Yeah.
No, literally not even half. Literally 3.
Ball State,
Indiana.
IU-Indy. Okay. Yeah, well.
All right. Indiana State.
I've got the powder blue on. Jaren's got he's got powder blue on there too. I don't know what color, it's like capturing lightning in a bottle over there with the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We had him first. He was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to us first.
Yep.
So.
Indiana State, they are in the Missouri Valley Conference, and they are coached by Coach Matt Graves, who is in his first year. He was formerly an assistant head coach, and he took the job over from Josh Schertz when Schertz left. His head coaching record, one thing that we'll point out, is 65 and 96. So it's about 400. But he's 0-0 at Indiana State, and that's all we care about.
That's so true. And we talked
with him.
We asked him specifically about his head coaching record, and he had an incredible answer that I will not reveal to you. And if you want to know what that answer was, go listen to our episode with head coach Matt Graves. He had a great answer, and I think it's very valid. So.
Yep. Well, so let's start off talking about where they ended up last season. What was their final rankings last season?
Yeah. So this is our team that has the biggest difference between the end of last season to this season, because there's a big change. Obviously, if you listen to our show and you're listening to the Indiana State episode, you were there with us shooting in the gym, talking about Indiana State every week. They finished 42nd at Torvik. They were NIT runners-up. So they barely lost in the NIT. They let Seton Hall go on like a 8-0 run to win the NIT. But they were in the NIT championship game, 42nd, just an incredible season.
As an aside, is it runners-up or is it runner-ups?
It's runners-up because
they were the ones running.
Yeah.
And ups can't be.
It's like it's passers-by, not passerbys.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Like brothers-in-law, not brother-in-laws. That kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway. You said runners up, and I was like, that sounds odd, but it is actually grammatically correct. And I knew it was, but My brain works in funny ways.
We're pea brain. But so like last year they had an incredible season. They went 17-3 in the conference in the Missouri Valley, won the regular season, runners up in Arch Madness, and they went 32-7 in like throughout the whole season. That includes their NIT run. So an incredible year. Would have loved to have seen them in the NCAA tournament, but NIT runner up is pretty darn great too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So this season.
Yeah. You mentioned it. A little bit of a drop. A little bit. Not huge.
An understandable drop, though.
They lost a lot of important players.
I don't know what the exact number is, but probably like 93% of the scoring or something.
I thought you were just going to say 90, but adding the 3 in there, I think it makes it even more valid.
I mean, they played 6-7 guys, and 6 of them are gone.
Yep. 196, according to Bart Torvik, is their preseason ranking. Preseason projected record, 16-15, and 9-11 in the conference. That would put them at 9th in the Valley. So we said 0-0 for Coach Graves at Indiana State. 16-15, already off to a better win percentage than he had in his previous head coaching stops. But again, check out that episode if you want to know what he thinks about all of that. Let's talk about key returners. Not very many of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fewest returners that we've talked about in this preview season.
I think by far,
so far.
Yeah. But I think by far it's also just the fewest production, the lowest amount of production.
Lowest minutes. Yeah. That's why I was saying, like, they had to have lost over 90% of their scoring.
93%.
Yeah. Well, 93 is over 90. So.
Yeah, you're right.
So they bring like 3 pieces of note, 3 players of note. And that's Aaron Gray. He's a 6'7" forward, senior forward. If you don't remember him, it's because he had to sit 10 games out last year because of a 2-time transfer rule, which I thought didn't exist anymore. Apparently, some antiquated rules are still there. But
yeah, I don't know, man.
If he had 5 minutes per game, only 1.3 points, and then sophomore center, 6'10" sophomore center Derek Vorst is back. I think he's a Matt Graves guy, like Matt Graves, so I think was the lead recruiter on him. So not surprising to see him stay. He played about the same production, 5 minutes, 1.7 points, 1.4 rebounds, and he played in every NIT game, which is great. You see him, getting run at the end and being in that rotation. So now he's going to be a more featured, more prominent role. And he dropped 8 points against Alabama. When I think that was the game Robbie didn't play, so he would have played a lot of the 5. I mean, they did a lot of sliding Kent down, but he played a lot of the 5 in that game. So 8 points against Bama. I mean, great team. And then Jaden Daughtry, he's a 6'7" sophomore wing. He played again 5 minutes per game and had 3 points per game. He dropped 15 against USI last year. I don't know what USI did to him, but he decided that it was his night, and so. He's the leading returning scorer, I believe, at 3 points per game, which
they averaged like close to 100.
Yeah, right. 3%, plus the 1.7. I mean, we're talking about 7% of those 100 points.
You're not wrong. That's
so not a lot, and that's because Josh Schertz left. And it's not just because Josh Schertz left. It's because last year's team was incredible, and every person on the roster, pretty much, the entire starting 5 proved that they can play at a higher level. I think Swope and Avila followed Schertz to St. Louis, and then Kent went to Texas, and who else went to Texas? Larry?
Yeah, I think so.
Julian Larry went to Texas, and then who went to Xavier. It's look that up for me, so that we can have better air. But I mean, they all left because they all proved that they could play, you know, at another level, and they got what they deserved in NIL. And so it was really, really, really cool to see those players. But obviously, as a fan of Indiana State, it's not fun to see all those players leaving. But they bring in a bunch of new pieces. Who?
Ryan
Conwell, yes. So Ryan Conwell goes to Xavier, and I think he's going to be incredible there. I think everyone's going to thrive in their new role, in their new school. But we're focused on the Sycamores. So they bring in a bunch of players. Because they have to. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
So, you know, it kind of happened a little bit later than most job switches, but they were able to put in a pretty good class. And Jaren, I don't know if you can correct me here. Is it Samaj or I think it's Samaj Teal?
I think so.
That's how I would say it.
I would say it's Samaje.
Samaje.
Yeah, okay. But it's a G, not a J, and
I didn't do my due diligence and try and find someone pronouncing it on a broadcast, and I should have. But he's a 6'2" super senior guard from Presbyterian, and he played 28 minutes per game there, averaged almost 14 points and like 2.5 boards and 2.5 assists per game, and he shot 41.5% from three. So that's like one of the better shooters in the transfer portal that you could get. Anytime you get a shooter above 40%, it's like, wow, like this is just what we needed. And, you know, especially with the way that they played last year, a lot of shooters for the Sycamores.
A lot of shooters.
It's in the Sycamore blood, I guess. But they bring him in. They bring over a 6'2" sophomore guard from VMI, Tyron Cook. He played about 28 minutes, 12.7 points per game, and about 3 rebounds and 2.5 assists. So good guards that they're bringing in, good scoring guards, which I think that they will need to run the offense that I think that Graves wants to run.
I agree. I think that they're definitely poised to have a successful season based on the pieces that they brought in. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is a good opportunity for Matt Graves to silence some of the haters who said that his head coaching record was not great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fair point to bring up, but they bring in some other people. So they bring in a 6'6" sophomore wing from Coffeyville. That's a JUCO. His name's Johnny Summers. Had 18 points per game in JUCO. So if that can transfer, like, that'll be great. And we saw that with, this similar level, people moving up a level and playing really well. So I think that can be promising. And then 6'10" senior center from Central Michigan, Marcus Harding, is coming over. They bring over Camp Wagner from Rice and Kamani Doty from Utah Valley. So they bring over all these players, and most of them are from like similar, like maybe a little bit lower leagues, but I think they've had proven production.
Yeah, I mean, it translates. Mm-hmm. Translatable production for sure. Sure.
Yeah, so pretty positive on the pieces they're bringing in. It's just a matter of what is their schedule going to look like, and will the team be gelling? Because they were pretty good. They were, what are they, number one team in the Valley last year in defense?
Sounds right.
Right, I think that's what Graves was talking about in our interview with him. They were the number one team in the Valley, and I mean, when you score 100 points, there's just more time for your opponent to also score. So they will also score quite a few points, but
yeah. So it was a little skewed in terms of
when you look at they
scoring,
won 100 to 80. It's like, oh my gosh, they gave up 80 points. It's like, yeah, they still won by 20.
Yeah.
So think of it that way. So they bring in a couple of freshmen, but I don't know. I think that, if you're talking about like the starting five, it's probably Teal, Tyron Cook, Johnny Summers, and then I don't know who starts here between Derek Vorst and Marcus Harding. Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. I think that's definitely a toss-up. could go Marcus Harding just because he is a senior. He's been around more. He's had more production playing at the higher level.
10.2 points at Central Michigan. Like, you should be able to get probably the same production here.
Yeah, and Vorst, if not more. And Vorst being only a sophomore, I think it just gives him time to play behind someone else, similar to how he did behind Robbie.
And especially because, like, Marcus Harding shot 63% from inside the three-point line last year, which is very efficient.
Yes.
So let's talk about their games, because when their schedule came out, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. And why do you think their schedule wasn't the best?
I think a lot of it has to do with Graves getting the job later in the cycle, so he didn't have quite as much time. He had put emphasis on getting players in versus scheduling games. So that just prolonged the game scheduling. Plus, because of what Schertz did, how dominant he was, no team wanted to play Indiana State because it's almost a trap game for any team that plays them. So
even if he's not attached.
Yeah. Because of the name recognition that Indiana State has developed under Schertz.
Yeah,
so.
It's hard to get someone. It's hard to get someone to a mid-major at all.
Yeah.
But especially like when you're good.
Yeah.
They don't want to bring you into their arena, because if they're bringing you into their arena, they want to know that they're going to win, and they're not paying you like $1 million to lose. Yeah,
the quad system definitely plays a big part in that. But looking at their non-con games, or excuse me, not even their non-con, their key games, right? They've got FAU and Ohio randomly.
Yeah.
But that's November 4th. So to start the season off, both teams are going through coaching changes. So that'll be an interesting way to gauge. I don't even think you can gauge the season off of that game, just because
you don't know what FAU is going to be.
You don't know what FAU is going to be, but could be an indicator based on how these teams play out throughout the rest of the season. They do play at Ball State, which I believe we talked about on our Ball State episode. That's November 16th. They play at Southern Indiana, which we will talk about on our Southern Indiana episode. And then they play in the Baha Mar Hoops Invitational. They kick that off with Arkansas State, November 29th. Then they play Iona the next day. Then they play Tarleton State the following day. So 3 back-to-back games there against a wide slew of teams. Arkansas State is by far the best team that they'll play.
Yeah. I mean, they're ranked 107 in Torvik, and Iona's the next highest at 253.
Yeah. So should, make some noise there. And then the last notable game that they have that obviously does not include conference play, they're at Ohio State, who is currently ranked 34 in Torvik, December 29th. So New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve. Sorry, one too many Eves. Because the 31st is New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. And then the 30th is New Year's Eve. So what? You were right. New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one has ever said that term before in their lives, so...
Nor should they say it again.
All right, well, let's talk about what...
Hang on. Hang on. Okay, so we obviously don't know what FAU is going to be, but we also don't really know what Indiana State's going to be. I think the fact that they bring in, like, good production, proven production, gives me a little bit of hope. But I also think that the Valley is pretty wide open in terms of what teams are going to be. So it can be a slog. But, I mean, at Ball State, I think, like, we talked about this. We think Ball State's going to be really good. Like, we think that they're going to be a lot better than their 252 that Torvik gave them in the offseason.
Yeah.
USI, we haven't talked about them yet, but I don't think they're 306th. And we talked on we talked on our episode with Coach Sprue about just like how bumping Screaming Eagles Arena can get. So like that's not a free game either.
Yeah.
But you know, you gotta go win against Iona and Tarleton State and try and compete with Arkansas State. And then Ohio State, I mean, it's Ohio State. You just, you know, glad to get a bye game, but try and win there.
Yep.
This season, I mean, what makes a successful season for them? Just try not to be terrible. Like, I mean, that's not literally like, oh, we weren't terrible, this is a great season. Try not to do a complete rebuild, right? You don't want to be starting from the ground up. Like, you want to try and be 500 at least. So like get to 16 and 15, or I guess you have to play one game at least in the Valley tournament. So like get to 16 and 16 at worst, I think is a successful season. And then, you know, win a game in Arch Madness, and you feel like, hey, you know, Matt Graves had to kind of put it together a little bit last second, but he got us to 500 and we won a game in Arch Madness. Like, that feels pretty good to me.
Yeah. I think those are very, like, realistic goals. And I think that if those things are achieved, it's definitely a success. What?
Yeah. But, like, what? I don't know. I just don't know what to think of the Valley.
Yeah, well, the Valley is going to be interesting just because the two best programs last year
both completely
left. I mean, Drake has been one of the most prominent, dominant programs in the Valley for so long that just because DeVries was there and built a powerhouse in that program, but like we don't know because he took the job at West Virginia, so
yeah,
they're starting over. I mean, Bradley and Belmont would be, you know, teams 3 and 4 in no particular order,
right?
And they're, I mean, historically good. So
what is the Valley? According to Torvik, he's talking Bradley and NIU, Drake, Southern Illinois, Murray State, UIC, Illinois State, Belmont, and then Indiana State. Indiana State, Evansville, Valparaiso. Come on, Bart. At least you got Missouri State below him. We'll give you that one. I don't know. I mean, it all. I think it's all going to really come down to like getting above 500 is going to come down to the Valley games, because if we're talking about their non-season, I think that FAU I think lost less than Indiana State did when Dusty left.
Yeah.
So I think they lost a little bit less production. So they've got more returning pieces at FAU. So I think if you're talking about their schedule, I think they probably lose to FAU to open the season. If you're competitive in that game, like you just got to be competitive in that game, and like that's not like, it's not a moral victory, but like that's what you would like.
Yep.
Ball State, I think Ball State's, you know, we think Ball State's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
We think Ball State's gonna be competing for the MAC championship. So
I think Ball State's going to be a tournament team.
Yeah, a middle Valley team maybe to, you know, the top of the MAC. I think, you know, they probably lose that one to Ball State, and then going to USI is not easy.
No,
like
you mentioned it.
Easy.
It's a tough place to play at home,
and they beat the
on the road, I guess, for them.
Breaks off of USI at the Holman Center last year. But this is a very different team, and you've got Sam Mervis in his home arena playing his old team. Like, he dropping 30
probably.
He's gonna say, Coach G, put me in. Put me in as my time.
But yeah, let's save that for the Southern Indiana episode.
So that's 3 losses. And then what about the MTE? They play in the Baha Mar Hoops Invitational something.
Baha Mar Hoops Invitational. So at least what we have written down.
Yeah.
Or what our intern wrote down for us.
Yeah. Nameless intern.
Yep. We do think they'll go 2-1 in the MTE. Like we said, Arkansas State is far and away the best team that they'll play while there. So we do think they'll probably lose to Arkansas State. But then Iona and Tarleton, they should be easy claps.
You got to win those.
Yeah.
You got to win those. And then, you lose to OSU. You lose to Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a given. Ohio State is a very good program.
Yeah.
They will be very good
and
this year.
seem to have gotten better as they fired their coach. So
Yep.
That puts them at 6-5, and then the Valley. I mean, this one was tough for me to look at. Their
we
Valley.
contemplated this.
We said
for
probably 3 or 4 different
potential records.
Yeah.
But we did settle on what, Adam?
Well, I mean,
It's a record I could never forget.
It's a hard one because I think you look at the teams and you're like, well, if Bradley is good, if Northern Illinois is good, like they play almost all of these teams twice. I don't remember who we decided they play only once. Southern Illinois and Illinois Chicago are the teams which, like, you want to play Southern Illinois twice if there's there.
Yeah.
Who is projected last? Missouri State. Okay, so you want to play Illinois, Chicago, and Illinois State are the teams. You would rather have different teams that you only play once. So I think we thought long and hard about 11-9 and 10-10, but I think it's 9-11 seems likely.
Yeah.
Seems likely.
And that matches our projection, right?
Yeah.
So far in our projections, they haven't quite matched. I think we've exceeded on most of them.
Except for Evansville. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I think this is realistic. I think 9-11 is very realistic. I could see them at 11-9. I could see them, like you said, 10-10.
Yeah.
I could see them at 8-12. But I do think that 9-11 is perfectly doable.
Yeah, and I think that part of that comes because, like, we're a little bit higher on Valparaiso just because they bring back a ton, whereas Indiana State does not
bring back.
They just don't bring back like anything.
About 7%.
Yeah. So it was tough, and like as much as I love Indiana State, I think 9-11 that's pretty. I mean, that's to projection. Now, they were projected to go 16-15, and we have them. If you took it 9-11 and added it to 6-5, that gives you 15-16 overall. So you just have to win one more game, steal a game somewhere, and you get to 500, and you meet the season goals.
Yep.
So our projections are so close to what we want the goals to be.
And honestly, I want our projection to be wrong.
Yeah,
I want them to. I want Matt Graves, Coach Graves, to give us a call and say, "You're fools.
You had me on, and you dare to rate me 15-16." So I mean, we want, and we talked about this multiple times in the offseason. We're very high on the Matt Graves hire.
Yep.
We think he's going to do very well. We think he's the right man for the job, and we think that he can be someone who stays there long term.
He wants to retire there.
Yeah, I mean, he that's his goal, right? That is his goal, is to never take another job after Indiana State, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
And so I'm not talking like I don't want him to do well. I'm saying, 15-16, that's pretty good for year one. Next year, go out and compete for the Valley.
I want a Tom Izzo, Matt Painter length career out of Coach Graves.
And I would not be surprised if we see Indiana State in the quarters of the semis of if we see them in the semis of Arch Madness. I'm not surprised at all. And being at like 12-8 or 13-7, I'm not surprised either.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's the Valley's pretty open.
Yep.
So I could see.
Ironically, the Valley runs deep, but that also means that it's very open.
Yeah. So Matt Graves, we're gonna get down to a game. We're gonna come down to the Holman Center. So we would love to see this team in person, and we're excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anything else on the Sycamores?
Roll trees.
Roll trees.
Wear the powder blues every game you can.
All right, the clock is showing quadruple zeros, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast. We will see you next time. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.